That will be all, Grand Admiral. I apologize for not being there in person, but governing the galaxy takes up much of my time.
I know who you are, and what you are.
You misjudge me. Can you not see the opportunity that stands here before you?
Emperor Palpatine's return in Star Wars Episode 9 is the most interesting aspect of the film. Recently, in a Vanity Fair spread, they talked about how the First Order and the formation of the First Order was going to be explored heavily in Star Wars Episode 9. That fact got me thinking, and in this video, I want to present to you a theory and pull all sorts of pieces of evidence from canon in the films, novels, and comic books to explain why I think that Palpatine's resurrection was always a part of his plan. It was the crux of the contingency that he formed after the Battle of Endor, and that Snoke and the First Order were always acting under Palpatine's direction. We do it for the fans. This video is brought to you in part by executive producer Al Schuler. Al Schuler is a big part of what we do here and has been a part of our executive producer tier on Patreon for over a year. What's up, everybody? Happy Star Wars Sunday to you if you're watching this video on Sunday, and if you're watching it later, no worries, but you should know every Sunday we do dope Star Wars videos here on this channel. Now, something that has always fascinated me is Emperor Palpatine around the time of the Battle of Endor and this idea of the contingency. If you don't know what the contingency is, it is basically a backup plan that Palpatine had if the Empire was to be overthrown by the rebellion. And towards the end of his life, and particularly with the Battle of Endor, Palpatine was completely aware that he was walking in blind. He denotes in the Aftermath series that he is heading into a Force Vergence, and that something might happen in the Battle of Endor that he cannot possibly see the outcome of. And he saw the outcome of a lot. You'll note in that movie he says a couple of times, I believe, that everything is proceeding as he has seen, or everything is going as he has foreseen it. And we know, if you've read a lot of ancillary material, that Palpatine was like the wickedest of the dark magic-y wizard Sith. He could literally read the minds of different people. He could put visions into people's heads. He was super powerful and super manipulative. And a lot of these facts are sort of crystallized in the very beginning of the third Aftermath book, where Palpatine has a discussion with Gallius Rax. Now, Gallius Rax is a character that was set up in the Aftermath series. He's some young boy on Jakku that is basically recruited by Palpatine to be in charge of his observatory on Jakku. A lot of people actually thought that Gallius Rax was going to end up being Snoke, because Gallius Rax had these early interactions with Palpatine, who was around a lot of Sith artifacts in the observatory, and so people thought it was probably going to be Snoke. In fact, this chapter, this little scene here with Gallius and Palpatine, only solidified that theory a bit further. You see, in this conversation, Palpatine explains a little bit of the contingency and asks Gallius Rax if he is ready to be the most hated man in the galaxy. Here's what Palpatine says to Gallius in that scene. "My boy, my precious boy, are you ready to be the outcast? Are you prepared to become the contingency should it come to that? There will be others you must call to your side." Now, the story in that book is fascinating, and I could go down that rabbit hole, but basically what I'm saying here, what's important to the theory, is that Palpatine had this plan, and the contingency, if it came to that, was in the hands of Gallius to do all these sort of things to purge the Empire that Palpatine thought was ungrateful and undeserving of the things that he had brought to them. Now, the idea was to go to Jakku, formulate there with the contingency, take what left of the loyal people to Palpatine to actually go out of this galaxy and to hide away in the unknown region. And a lot of what Palpatine was doing towards the end of his life had to do with the unknown regions. We know that he was meditating about some crazy power and presence that he felt out there. A lot of the observatories are built on the outer edge of the galaxy, which give him access to the hyperspace lanes inside the unknown regions. We know that Palpatine was messing around with the Chiss, and he was mapping, navigating out there in Chiss space, which is in the unknown regions. We know this from a lot of the Thrawn novels and the passages in the Thrawn novel. Now, though Gallius didn't make it and the contingency didn't go exactly according to Palpatine's plan, a bunch of Imperial people do end up leaving Jakku and going into the unknown regions. And it is said in canon that they stumble upon or are intersected by these aliens that are in Snoke's throne room. These aliens who have these really really weird big brains, and they're able to see through these things to map the actual hyperspace lanes out in the unknown regions. Yeah, it is said that without these creatures, everybody would have perished in the contingency. And although it's never explicitly explained, we think that it had to do with Snoke, that Snoke was out there, that he knew these aliens or knew of these aliens, had interacted with them before, and he helped find the contingency and then help them to grow, rebuild, and re-enter the galaxy. Now, the First Order is coming back into our galaxy explicitly to restore the order of the Empire. It's like a big thing for them. A lot of different people within the First Order worship the Emperor. Captain Phasma's armor is made from one of the Emperor's yacht. Supreme Leader Snoke holds the Emperor and Darth Vader in pretty high regard, which we'll get into in a second. Now, the Vanity Fair article, as I said at the top of this video, talks about how the First Order and the formation of the First Order is going to be heavily explored in Star Wars Episode 9. This is all connected to the contingency. It's all connected to Palpatine's visions of the Force Virgins, his formation of the contingency, the fact that they all met over Jakku and then go out there and meet up with Snoke. This all ties into each other. And so it's pretty unlikely that Snoke was just opportunistic. He says that he saw the rise and the fall of the Galactic Empire. And it is my theory that upon exploring the First Order and its formation, we will understand further and explicitly the connection between Snoke, the contingency plan, and Palpatine. I think that Snoke was under the command of Emperor Palpatine, not control of Palpatine, as some people out there believe that maybe, you know, Snoke is just a puppet that Palpatine had possessed. No, I don't think so. But I do think that Snoke and the entire First Order is still acting under the orders of Palpatine. They are under his command. And I think Palpatine wanted to completely weed out all of the weakness and all of the people that didn't have faith in him from the Empire. That's why Gallius does a lot to undermine the remnants of the Empire. He even goes as far as to feed information to the rebels. And the idea from Palpatine was likely that if they allowed the rebellion to take over, if the Empire failed him as Emperor and it failed to bring his vision to light, then it didn't deserve to be around anymore. And that he was so mad at the Empire and the galaxy in general for rejecting this benevolent rule that he thought he was providing, that he was going to take it away, allow it to all be destroyed, and I think he'd come back later and do it again, but in a different way. I think that Palpatine wanted to have the dark side to be a part of his new empire, of the Empire 2.0. And I think that has a little bit to do with the fact that he was resurrected, but it also has to do with just lessons from the ancient Sith Empire and the fact that he tried it a different way. In the ancient Sith times, the Empire had a ruling Sith class. There was a hierarchy in the Sith Empire that still had powerful beings that were not Force sensitive, but a Sith was always above any non-Force sensitive being. And this ruling class of Sith was feared and respected, and that is how they ruled, with that fear and that respect. Now, Palpatine's original plan to conquer the galaxy and to formulate the Empire was different than this. He hid the fact that he was a Sith from almost everyone in the system. He also lived by the rule of two, which was created by Darth Bane. And it's likely that Palpatine took a lot of the lessons that Bane had left behind and formulated them into his psyche. The Galactic Empire of Sheev Palpatine was built right on top of the Republic. Sheev kept his identity as a Sith Lord almost completely hidden. As I've said before, there were only a few people in the Empire that knew this fact. And though the Emperor did rule by fear, his emphasis on propaganda implied that he at least wanted to keep the facade of a peaceful and righteous empire. He wanted people to see him as a benevolent ruler. He never let go of the side of him that was Sheev Palpatine, the smart politician from Naboo. Was he a Dark Lord of the Sith? Absolutely, but I think he held on to that identity, and I think his basic philosophy was that if the galaxy was not aware that they were a part of an evil empire, that they would be much more likely to actually fall in line. And it worked to a degree, but there was still dissenters. Eventually, that rebellion that literally rejected his rule took over. And I think that Palpatine's idea of relying on a facade using propaganda and hiding the fact that he was a Sith, I think all of that is going to end. I think Palpatine was pretty bitter. In that anger, I think he decided that if they truly destroyed that he would come back and rule a different way, like the Sith of old. Consider that the First Order uses kyber crystal weapons. Consider that they built their stormtrooper program based on the recruitment tactics of the Jedi, who went after very young children. The Supreme Leader is known to have dark side powers, and the Knights of Ren and Kylo Ren are specific arms of the First Order that are dedicated to the Force and to the dark side. Now I want to take a second and read you a prophecy that is uncovered in the most recent Claudia Gray novel, Master and the Apprentice. There's a prophecy in there that goes like this: "He who learns to conquer death will through his greatest student live again." Now, as many people pointed out, this could refer to Pelagus, as Pelagus is the original person that learns to conquer death in the Star Wars universe, but that's a video for a different time. Let's consider the possibility that this refers to Palpatine. If Palpatine is truly alive, I think that means that he did conquer death. Right now, I'm imagining that he's likely in some kind of a spirit form, or that his essence is either linked to some sort of object or some sort of place, that he is not fully dead. But he hasn't come back alive. He's merely conquered death. And so for him to be alive again, I think will have to take place through his greatest student, fulfilling that prophecy and allowing the resurrection of Palpatine. It's a lot like Sauron in The Lord of the Rings. I think he's like a ghost right now, connected to something, either like the Death Star itself or some kind of an object. And I think that in this example, Snoke would be the greatest student that this prophecy refers to. There are massive connections to Snoke. I mean, he mentions the fact that he respects Palpatine and Vader heavily. There's mention of the fact that he witnessed the rise and fall of the Empire. He obviously reveres the Empire in the order that it brought. Snoke's ring is a really interesting aspect to this theory as well. The gold there has glyphs from the Duarte, and the Duarte, of course, are these statues that do appear in Palpatine's office on Coruscant. They were ancient philosophers around the formation of the Republic, and he idolizes them, and the ring that Snoke uses obviously pays homage to the Duarte, and then the stone is from Vader's catacombs on Vader's castle. It is very obvious due to a lot of the ancillary materials that Snoke idolized Palpatine, loved Vader, loved what was going on with the Empire. Check out this passage here from The Force Awakens novelization. Here's what he says here. Kylo Ren, I watched the Galactic Empire rise and then fall. The gullible prattle on about the triumph of truth and justice and individualism and free will, as if such things were solid and real instead of simple subjective judgments. The historians have it all wrong. It was neither poor strategy nor arrogance that brought down the Empire. You know too well what did. Ren nodded once. Sentiment. Yes, such a simple thing, such a foolish error of judgment. A momentary lapse in an otherwise exemplary life. Had Lord Vader not succumbed to emotion at the crucial moment, had the father killed the son, the Empire would have prevailed, and there would be no threat of Skywalker's return today. A couple of things jump out to me about that. Like, number one, how does Snoke even know that? The only person living that was there was Luke Skywalker. Did Luke Skywalker share this fact with a lot of different people? I'm pretty sure that in one of the Leia novels, it is explicitly spelled out that Luke only told Leia about what their father actually did. And that's why in Bloodline, when it comes out that Vader was her father, it's like a huge deal and destroys her reputation. Beyond the fact that Snoke knows this, which is to me, very privileged information, there's also the fact that within this, he obviously knows that the historians got it wrong, that the Empire would have prevailed had Vader not succumbed to his sentiment. And we hear in The Last Jedi that Snoke is obsessed with the possibility of Kylo Ren becoming a new Vader. There's the potential of his bloodline to become a new Vader. And I'm starting to believe that he does not want a new Vader for himself, but rather for Palpatine when he eventually resurrects his master. It is even possible that this is how Snoke would be able to complete Kylo Ren's training, because he was Palpatine's greatest student. I think it's possible that the Knights of Ren are on this mission to either find something or some place where Palpatine can be resurrected. They're out looking for a way to make this happen. It's even possible that that's where they have been in both The Force Awakens and in The Last Jedi. They were out looking for something to eventually resurrect Palpatine. And perhaps this will be why they turn on Kylo Ren. There are a lot of rumors right now that Kylo will end up fighting the Knights of Ren. We think we see that in the trailer. And even beyond that, there are rumors that there will be some kind of a civil war among the First Order, with Kylo Ren and certain elite stormtroopers on one side, and with General Hux and a lot of different stormtroopers on that side. And maybe this all has to do with Snoke. Maybe this all has to do with the fact that Kylo Ren says it is time to let old things die. The Sith, the Jedi, Snoke, Skywalker. He's talking about all of it, and that would include resurrecting Palpatine if that was something that both Snoke and the Sith wanted. Now, the reason I like this theory so much is that it literally explains almost every major question that Star Wars fans have had about Snoke, about the First Order, and about the 30 years that happened from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. This has been stuff, by the way, that Disney's been really closed lips about, and while many of us have criticized them and said, well, maybe they just don't have the answers, if they did have the answers and they were holding it back because it tied into Palpatine in episode 9, I will completely forgive them not talking about this. Again, a lot of this came to me because the Vanity Fair article talks about how the First Order and the formation of the First Order is going to be a big part of Star Wars Episode 9. Let me know what you think about this. Do you think the First Order was always acting under Palpatine's instructions, and that Snoke's mission was to resurrect the ancient emperor of the Galactic Empire? Whatever your thoughts are about it, let me know in the comment section below. Now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, according to legends, who was the previous owner of the Duarte statues that Palpatine has in his office? Answer that question in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.